today I want to also focus on you and also your journey through cancer as well. So I'm I'm curious, how did you find out that you had cancer, and also how does one go about finding out that they have cancer? Because I mean, it. I know many people in my family as well who had cancer, and it was something they realized really late on, because it's not something that's instantly knowable, so to speak. So I'm curious about how you found out.
Yeah, well, I mean, there are so many, obviously, different types of cancer, and when you invited me on your show to talk about it, it's actually surprisingly not really a big part of my life, but I really want to share my story because it's very important to me that women in particular take heed of my story and think about checking themselves regularly. I actually had breast cancer, and I have no history of it at all in my family. So, my mother is very, very healthy. My grandmother died of a natural death. She'd never had cancer either. So, my side of the family, nothing. And certainly my father's side, no one had cancer there either. So, this wasn't something I was very alert to. But what happened was, end of last year, so October last year, I had decided to get myself fit. So I got a personal trainer, and I'm still with him. He's fantastic. Hello, Ari, calling out for you. So my personal trainer would come to my house because I'm so lazy that I thought, right, if I get this guy to come to my house and actually do it at my house, I don't have to worry about going to the gym or anything. I started doing these exercises, which involved lifting a very heavy so-called medicine ball up and over my head, in a sort of upward over gesture, lifting both arms straight. This caused my pectoral muscles to sort of be strained and, ache. And I was obviously having after effects of exercise and feeling like, oh, I'm pretty achy and oh. Anyway, I think I had been doing those exercises maybe only 2 or 3 weeks. And then I was having a shower. And it was the weekend, and I won't forget it because it was that Deeper Valley weekend where we had the Monday off. So the Deeper Valley had moved to the Monday, the 28th of October. And I was in the shower, just, washing as usual, when I felt literally an enormous solid lump at the very top of my left breast. And I thought, what is that? I felt it again, and it literally was like a golf ball. It was huge. And I thought, well, this is really weird. Like, I shower every single day. How on earth could this thing have hidden itself? But I honestly believe that actually it was those exercises. The exercising of the pectoral muscles had kind of agitated the tumor and caused the tumor to suddenly be very inflamed and get very angry. And so my husband was abroad in Tokyo, and so I couldn't tell him that I was suspecting I had something strange. The following Monday was this holiday I mentioned, so I wasn't able to go to the doctor. So I had to wait until the Tuesday, looking after my 3 daughters on my own that whole weekend, and worried about what this thing might be. And also because, like I said, I had no history of breast cancer. I'd always thought, oh, well, maybe one day in my 60s or something, I might get some cancer. And especially in Asia, lots of people get colon cancer. So I've always been conscious about eating a lot of broccoli. But, I kind of thought, oh, hey, one day I might get that sort of thing. It never occurred to me that I would be the kind of person to have. I mean, this is me talking about kind of person. I mean, there isn't a kind of person. But, in your mind, when you think there's a kind of person who, I thought I'm not that kind of person. Anyway, so I went to the GP, and I remember her saying, highly suspicious. So I said, okay, what shall we do? And she said, right, I'm booking you in to Mount E tomorrow for mammogram. Said, fine. So that was the Tuesday. Wednesday went for the mammogram. By the Friday, the mammogram had said, yes, suspicious, need to move to the next stage. Went to see a breast surgeon the following week. By then, obviously, my husband was back. We were pretty nervous. We went to see the breast surgeon. We started to realize that it was getting a bit serious when I'd had an 11 a.m. appointment with the breast surgeon, and she said, you're going to have a biopsy today. You're going to have to come back at 4 p.m. and I'm going to do it then and there. I thought, ooh, that sounds quite urgent. This isn't good. So I went back, I had the biopsy, and it involves literally being shot with a gun. Like this gun thing goes, and it takes out a lump of your flesh. So I had that 3 times in the tumor area. And of course, this was sent away to the lab. In the meantime, I had a PET CT scan as well, like a full body all over thingy. And then on the 8th of November, that Friday was when I got the results. And the breast surgeon said to me, yes, I can confirm that you have the most aggressive form of breast cancer. It's called triple negative. This is a very rare cancer. It's only 10 to 15% of breast cancer cases and has a particularly high prevalence amongst Asian and African American women. So there may be some sort of genetic thing that triggers this, but I would really recommend, Asian women in particular to be really on the lookout for any changes. And the thing about this form is, as I mentioned, it's super aggressive. So, that had literally been growing just we don't even know how long, but the way that I found it, I think actually I hadn't had it for very long, maybe a month or even less. So it was that aggressive, just growing like crazy in me. And by the time, though, I'd had all the biopsy and everything, I could literally feel it burning. The way that it was growing, it was burning me. It was so painful. And so what I did was, when I had those results, I phoned my very good friend. I'm very lucky. I have a friend who I was at school with, who is a consultant breast surgeon in the UK. So she's called Dr. Fiona Tsang-Wright. I called Fiona. I'm like, I've got this thing. What am I going to do? This is awful. And she said, yeah, but don't panic. This is very treatable. This is the sort of thing that you'll deal with, and you'll look back in a year and actually it'll be all behind you. The thing was that in those days, I had only heard bad news stories. I went to an all-girls school, and there were 24 of us in my class. By the age of 42, 2 of my friends were already dead from cancer. And so I was the 3rd person in my class. And I was thinking, this is not good, right? Because my 2 friends were already dead. And I was thinking, I don't want to be that 3rd person. I've got, 3 young daughters. I cannot live. And literally the first thing that went through my mind was, I'm not going to go to their wedding. What am I going to do? I'm not going to make it to their wedding.
Yeah.
But anyway, so then what they told me was, you have to get on with it and you have to have chemo straight away. So by the 14th of November, I started chemo. And it was really frightening, because you go, so I'm extremely lucky. I have private health insurance with Cigna. They have been amazing. They have covered every single thing. And so, of course, I got the very best care. So I went to Parkway Cancer Centre, which is at, Queen Elizabeth Hospital, Orchard. And there in the cancer centre, there are, very nice little clinic with some lovely nurses looking after me. But anyway, when you get in there, they literally, they put on their gloves and they handle these bright red bags of chemicals, which are literally poison, right? And you see them handling these things gingerly, and you're thinking, you're handling that with gloves gingerly, and yet you're just about to stick a massive needle in my vein and pump it through my body. Like, this doesn't make sense. And it says poison all over it. And that red one, it's called the red devil. And I tell you, it is. So I had...
Feels like an inappropriate name, though.
Well, no, it's not, of course, that's not the official name. No, that's a nickname. Okay. For cancer patients, that's where, like, oh, there's the red devil. But not, they don't call it that in the paperwork. Yes, there are some very complex names for all of this stuff. But I know that I had AC and Taxol. So that was my combination, and I had 5 months of that. So it was pretty intense, and every single side effect that you can imagine over that time, like crazy stuff. And I honestly actually can't even remember most of it now, but it was pretty horrific. And I was very, very tired and not well for a long, long time. But then I had surgery, and because my chemo was so effective, so it literally shrunk away to nothing with the chemo, and so I was able to have a lumpectomy. And so these days the surgeons are so skilled, and they can look for clear margins all the way around, and so it's quite a minimally invasive surgery, actually. I mean, it's you would never... I mean, I'm not intending to go topless anywhere, but I tell you, if I ever did, no one would know. So that's how good it is. And then after that, I had radiotherapy for a whole month. So every single day for 4 weeks. It was pretty intense. I had to go every day, had to make it into my routine. But there was a fantastic team at Gleneagles under Dr. Tam. So he's a lovely, really, really lovely radiologist, and his team, they were great. But I tell you, Singapore, I honestly am so grateful to have been in Singapore during this time, because the facilities, the way that everything is just so well planned. In the hospital, you just go different levels for everything, all in the same building. You just take the lift, and it's like, okay, you need CT scan there, or you need your blood test here, then you go to that there. And I needed to see a dermatologist. Oh yeah, he's on level 12. It's like so well organized, so convenient. All the professionals were just amazing. It was a great, let's say, in the scheme of things, a very good experience, with a fantastic result. And so I finished in mid-June, and I'm still here. So there you go.
That's fantastic. And I mean, that's the one thing I would definitely agree with you. The healthcare here is very comprehensive and very well thought out. So that's really a blessing. I want to get your opinion on this, because it seems like from finding that lump, to getting a review from the doctors, to being diagnosed, to then being prescribed a solution, for lack of a better word. It seems like there was very little time to think, and I wonder if that was helpful, because then it allowed it made sure that your mind didn't wander to dark places.
Yeah, I think because of the nature of my particular cancer, all of the health professionals said time is of the essence with this one. You just need to get on with it ASAP. So I honestly, yes, I didn't have time to hang around thinking about it. But I'm very lucky in that I am an extremely action-orientated person. So the moment I know that something needs to to be done, I get on with it. I do not hang around. So, all of my appointments were just bam, 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 bam. The moment I knew I needed to see, someone, that appointment was made and I was there. I literally dropped everything. I went, I did it, and it was my priority. I understood the seriousness of this cancer. And so literally from the 29th of October, when I found out, to when I started chemo the 14th, it honestly couldn't have been faster. And certainly, I think in the UK, if I'd have been there on the National Health, you're looking at maybe 3 to 6 months, which I managed in like 3 weeks. So I have managed the best outcome because of the fact that, I had private medical insurance, and I'm in a place where that is the treatment is available in that way, and it was super efficient, and I had people who emphasized how I needed to be on it and just do it. So I was very lucky to get great advice. I saw the literally queen of oncology here in Singapore. She's called Dr. Dent, at the National Cancer Center, and she advised me on my treatment, confirmed that my treatment was very much the cutting edge, and that this was absolutely, going to be the most effective, and there would be a good outcome if I had the treatment as soon as possible. So that was just so reassuring, and that was fantastic. And the care that I had from all the health professionals has been fantastic. But yes, I think when I met, so my breast surgeon is Dr. Ho, and I said to Dr. Ho, so, what happens when you see these ladies? And she said, the most heartbreaking thing is the number of people who bury their heads in the sand. They ignore their symptoms, or they go into denial because they're so scared. And it occurred to me that actually one of the biggest reasons for that is that feeling that, well, at the end of the day, it's going to be a bad outcome anyway, so I'd rather put it off. And that's kind of why I'm here to tell my story today, actually, because no, the outcome, if you catch it early and take action, is actually very good. And you can get over it if you do something about it. But if you leave it, with my type of cancer, if you leave it, that is it. You will be dead very, very quickly, because it can go, it progresses from stage 1 to 2 to 3 to 4 extremely quickly. It's the worst one for, metastasizing and spreading to other organs. So I was really lucky. I was just stage 2. It had not spread to my lymph nodes because, as I say, it was super aggressive. It was just there overnight, literally, and we were able to get on top of it very quickly. But I think if I possibly hadn't had that fortune of having my personal trainer and the exercises, I probably wouldn't have discovered it for some time. So, you have to be really alert. And then for other ladies, they should go for an annual mammogram. And the thing is that I think in Singapore, Singapore's very good about offering that on an annual basis naturally for women. And I'm not really sure what age it is, but it's possibly from 40 onwards, I think they offer it. But triple negative can affect women actually any age, and it actually starts in the sort of mid to late 20s, and up to sort of age 50. But it is the cancer that affects the youngest women, because generally there are other types. They're called HER or ER positive, and there's a few others. I'm no expert. But they tend to affect women that are older. So generally the 55 to 65-year-old age group are the most at risk for general cancer. But unfortunately, the triple negative tends to come in the younger age group. So yeah.
Um, it's really interesting that you brought up, how people, stick their head in the sand, when they're going through difficult things, when in actuality it's about acknowledging and recognizing the issue. And I think that's true for any challenge in life, so to speak. Yet I can understand why it's a challenge, because I suppose it's a little bit to do with, who we are as people growing up, right? Whether it's nature or nurture or however you want to define it. If your natural inclination is to hide your head in the sand, then regardless of how severe the challenge or the obstacle or be it cancer or anything else, that's going to be the natural outcome. Do you have any thoughts on how one can rethink that state of mind, knowing full well that this is their modus operandi, until until something as severe as cancer, for example?
Yeah, I would say that building resilience and constantly training yourself to step outside your comfort zone will help you. And I've been lucky that I am someone like that who's always pushed myself. I'm very focused on understanding, my strengths and weaknesses, and focusing on my weaknesses and how I can improve myself. So, trying to do things, I guess in a weird way, I'm a sort of an adrenaline junkie in that way. Like, I'm not in the bungee, jumping kind of way, but in the way that, for example, I'm really phobic of public speaking. I really just don't like it. But I sometimes try and find opportunities to do it, because if I manage it, I'm so overwhelmingly proud of myself when I manage, because I know how awful I find it, how difficult I find it. And so, there's that feeling of tremendous achievement when you've done something. So I deliberately seek out those opportunities. Uh, but that meant that, when I came across something like this, which is obviously the ultimate challenge, I was able to just say, this is just something that you need to do. And for me, I would actually say that childbirth has been the thing that has prepared me most mentally for what I experienced. So I've had 3 natural births with my 3 daughters, and each experience was completely unique, and very, very difficult, all 3. But weirdly, each time I entered each birth with such an optimism. I really thought, well, that first one didn't go so well and that wasn't great, but this time it's going to work. I'm going to have like a water birth, or, a hypnobirth, and no. And in fact, the third one was the worst. So it's just ridiculous how that kind of happens. But I definitely have the kind of mindset where no matter what, and even based on previous experience, I'm still optimistic. And that's how I was with each dose of my chemotherapy. Having to go back every single week, I'd just be starting to feel well again, and then knowing I'd have to go in, but thinking, yeah, but you know what? I bet I'll be better this time. Even though it was last week was a horrendous nightmare, the side effects this week, I bet they won't be as bad as last week, because they were actually always different. So it felt like a bit of a lottery, as to what I would suffer that particular week. So I was always really optimistic about how well I'd cope.
Right.
So yeah, I would say to people, really, please try and push yourself in small ways. And it really doesn't have to be, like I said, getting on stage and speaking to a crowd, but it can be little things. I mean, even if you haven't been to the pool and swam for many years, go and have a swim. Or maybe you're an adult and you haven't cycled for a long time, go and rent one of those bikes and have a go. Just little things that you feel a little bit uncomfortable, try it and see and feel proud of yourself. You feel a really, great sense of personal accomplishment. And I think it's important to acknowledge that for yourself.
Right. Yeah, that's so important. And I can sense from your answers and just the way you deliver them that you really are a very optimistic and positive person. I mean, is that something you've always been, or, something you developed through a variety of hardships?
I think, to be honest, I'm blessed with a hereditary dose of positivity in my DNA. My grandfather was a headmaster of a very large secondary school in Japan, and he was I think, the eldest of 10 children. And so, having that status as the eldest, he was always such a positive person, and he just had two children. So my uncle, and then my mother. So she was the younger child. But he really brought her up to be such a positive spirit, and she is so positive. And I grew up with my mother telling me always, oh well, that's not so bad, and oh no, this is fine. Look at it on the bright side. And so her positivity has definitely been what's rubbed off of me most. My mum was a single mum from the age of after I was 12. We moved to the UK by ourselves, the two of us, and so she, is very much my strongest influence. And that positivity is one of those things where, when you're young, you have no idea about positive and growth mindset and all of these buzzwords that are like totally a thing, right? Mindfulness and all of that. I totally grew up with all of that from her, just naturally. We didn't know it was a thing. We didn't know about, the health benefits of being positive or any of those things. We were just kind of happy-go-lucky, and anything that came up in our way, we just said, well, okay, no one died here. Let's just get on with it.
Yeah.
And that's always just been my philosophy. Like, well, so long as no one's dead, like no one has died, it's okay. And so I'm very good at like putting stuff into perspective and going, okay, yeah, that's not great for the moment, but let's think about ways that we can get through this. And hey, it's only temporary. And I have the most incredible ability to sort of switch off and forget things. Like I really honestly have the memory of a fish. And it has served me well, because I just go, oh, okay, well, that didn't work out very well. I just blank it.
Right. Yeah. It's a great philosophy, like just to really calibrate the severity of things, which in the modern world can be really hard to do because, everything seems like the end of the world, you don't meet a sales quota, you have a bad relationship, and then we just compound it in our mind. Yeah, so I suppose you're right. Just calibration is really important. So I'm gonna consciously remember that. You also mentioned that during your cancer recovery, you decided to get certified to become a coach. I'm curious if the cancer was the impetus, or it just provided you that free time. Well, free is the wrong word, but that time to think that maybe this is where I want or what I want to pursue.
So actually what had happened was I have this very lovely friend of mine called Susan, and Susan herself is a coach. To be honest, I didn't really know what coaching was at that time, and this is back in September last year.
Sorry to interrupt you. What's her full name?
Susan Barrett.
Okay, right.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. So Susan Barrett is a coach, and she's a friend of mine. And so she had said, I've been coaching for all these years. I have not got a certification. I'm thinking about doing one. And I said, actually, I know this lady, and she's been sending me emails about her course that she is now running. And it is gives you a qualification as an International Coaching Federation coach, ICF. And that's like the accredited body, the coaching body. So I said, hey, Susan, let me take you along to meet Jean. So we went for coffee. So this is Jean Balfour and Susan Bassett, and the three of us were there. And Jean was telling Susan about the course. I was just there for coffee. But I was listening. I was going, this is all quite interesting, actually. Well, tell me again about this course. And, oh, it's virtual, and she was saying, yes, it's at 6 p.m. on a Monday night, and you just tune into your, get on your internet, on your Zoom. And I didn't even know what Zoom was, to be honest. But anyway, I was like, oh, that sounds quite convenient, because I was thinking, yeah, I could fit it around my work. And the more I heard about coaching, I was thinking, well, I use that in my work all the time, So I'm head of business development for a law firm here in Singapore, and I coach my lawyers all the time. And I thought, well, this would be a great skill, great skill set, and something to do. And I love to study, and I'm always up for a certificate. So I thought, yeah, I'll let me think about it. So I went away and thought about it, and I was supposed to start in October. In November. It was the November cohort. But of course, I got my diagnosis. So I said to Jean, I actually honestly didn't know whether I would even need to have a certification, because I didn't even think I had a future. So this is what happens. You get a diagnosis like that, and you honestly, the worst thing is you cannot plan your future. You don't know things like, should I bother going to get a filling in my tooth? Because do I actually need my teeth? Shall I bother with a certificate? Because I don't even know if I'm going to be alive next year to actually teach people. So these strange things come into your mind. So I said, look, hey, I can't do the November thing. I'm not joining. Watch this space. See you later. I'll just go off and have my treatment. But anyway, during my treatment, so my mother came to Singapore and was looking after me. And I was saying to her, oh, I should do something. I hate to waste my time. And so we started talking about the coaching, and I thought, you know what? Yeah, this whole Zoom thing, I could, from my bed on my iPad, tune into this Zoom classroom and do this course, and then if I get well, come back with a certification, and this would be great. So I literally did it to take my mind off the chemo, just to kind of help me learn, focus on something else, meet other people. I met these fantastic people in my cohort through Zoom, and then I did 100 hours coaching all through Zoom. People all over the world. It was amazing.
Wow.
And during my 100 hours, I started to realize that, you know what? Everything had been leading up to this moment. The whole thing made sense, that I would, pause in my life, that I would be given the opportunity to suddenly do this course, that I would suddenly realize that actually coaching is my calling, that it's the most natural thing for me, and that I enjoy it so much. It energizes me so much, and the way that I can impact people's lives. The thing was, I had been doing that like all my life, and I hadn't actually realized it until I knew now, because the feedback I get from people, and I've had that all the time, but I just hadn't really paid attention to it before. They're always going, oh, you helped me with this and you helped me with that. And I've always just thought, yeah, sure, I'm a helpful person. Yeah. I'm always giving advice in this. What I hadn't realized was that these things were unusual, that there aren't that many people who go around who give like really valuable advice, or who really listen and ask you questions that help you move on. And that because I was always able to tap into something of my personal experience, and because I'm a very convincing person, I had actually got all of these people to take action and do something about it, which had led to a positive outcome in their lives, which they had never forgotten, which of course I had forgotten, because like I told you, right, I have a memory like a fish.
Yeah.
So I don't remember any of these conversations or what I had told them or anything. And then they come back years later and they go, yeah, remember how you told me this? And then I went off and did that. I go, really? Wow. Okay, great. Thank God I had that impact on you. But anyway, that's kind of what happened. And so I passionately fell in love with coaching. I got my certification, and I am just waiting for my now ICF accreditation, which is a whole other thing. That takes 14 weeks to come through. So I'm hopefully getting that in the beginning of November. But I've had like this life life-changing journey where I honestly, because of the pandemic, began to realize how through Zoom, my new best friend, I can reach the world, how I can have impact through Zoom on all of these people, and that this is actually my higher calling. So I'm actually leaving my job. I have quit my job, I'm leaving my job, and I am now starting my own coaching business. And because I've always loved being an entrepreneur. So it satisfies my two favorite things in the world. One is being an entrepreneur, and the second is helping people through my coaching.
Yeah,
And it's super exciting.
that's fantastic. I I don't know if you noticed this, but it's a bit of a life lesson almost, because you spoke about how, you weren't even sure that you would survive to require that certification to help others, but then you realize the value of that coaching, and how it it incorporates into your life journey. And I think what I got out of that was just that, is to really focus on the things you can control, and the things you want your life to the meaning you want your life to have. And I think that's a very important point, and I think that's what I got out of it as well, I mean, of what you said. But I don't know if you recognized that point that I just mentioned.
Yeah, totally. I mean, it's I'm such a believer in being alert and sensitive to the things in your universe, and the fact that there's a sort of a chain reaction that happens, and that once you start to be alert and you notice these things, it really is like you are on a journey, and that each step, it's like these little stepping stones appearing, out of the water and leading you into a different path. But I'm a very big believer in being like the master of your own destiny. So I'm not a fatalist. I don't like the idea that, oh, no matter what, you were destined to do such and such. No, no, no. You are presented with always a variety of choices, and you yourself must make those choices. But if you are listening to the signs that are out there and follow certain things, you can go down a certain path. And certainly for me, there were just so many signs, things that happened to me along the way in terms of the timing of things, the coaching coming, I mean, like, I would never have gone to sit with Jean if Susan hadn't said, hey, I want to do this. So I said, okay, you'll meet this lady. This lady had said, this is on Zoom. I joined Zoom. I wouldn't have done it possibly, I don't know. I mean, I think I was still going to do it anyway, with or without the cancer, because I was already on that journey of discovery. But I do think that I probably, just would have used the coaching in my current role if the whole pandemic had not exploded. The pandemic is a big part of this journey as well. The timing, the feeling that everybody went on lockdown at a time when I was on lockdown myself. I had been on lockdown since November last year, because my immunity was zero. So
Right.
I could not be in the community. I have been locked away and being in a virtual environment since November. So for me, it was like, wow, the whole world has joined me. How decent of everybody. They're not out there partying without me. So I didn't miss any of that. And I enjoyed the fact that I feel like I'm doing something new again. And as you heard from my story in the beginning, I'm not someone who is afraid of changing direction, of following my heart, of being able to see a new opportunity and to know when it's time for me to leap into something new.
Yeah.
So I want to help other people who, especially right now in the pandemic, may be thinking about a new path.
Yeah, I love it. I mean, you spoke you we spoke previously, and you mentioned how as coaches, you're trained to ask more questions than to really provide advice. But you at the same time, you also believe that, you know if you're in search of a coach, you should hire one that also resembles who you'd like to be. So I'm curious why you think that.
I think it's one of those things where so purist coaching is really about the listening and the powerful questions, like we said. However, particularly effective transformational coaching actually is kind of a hybrid insofar as it's coaching and advisory to some extent. So you follow the coaching model as far as you can take it. So the coaching believes that every person is the expert in their own life, and that subconsciously they actually do know most of the answers. But the reality is, and especially in a business context, some people really don't know all the answers and they hit a wall. So you ask them, okay, so what could you do? What else could you do? What else? What else? And you get as far as you can in terms of what they themselves have within them as to what they can do. But then they're going to reach a point where actually they've run out of ideas for themselves, which is kind of why they're seeing you in the first place, right?
Yeah.
And so at that point, you then go, well, actually, I've got a couple of ideas myself. Would you like me to share it with you? So you ask permission from the client if they're interested in hearing. And the reality is, yes, they always are.
Yeah.
So they'll go, yes. And that then lets you step out and take off your coaching hat into your advisory hat. And you go, well, you either provide an example. So say, well, in that similar situation, I tried this and, I found this effective. What do you think of that? Or what about these things? But then you step back into the coaching as much as possible, because it's far more powerful for somebody if they can come up with the solutions for themselves. But at the same time, I do recognize the need for, some inspiration, some advisory to some extent as well when they need it. And so having that ability is good. But I think, if you're going to be someone that's going to help change someone's life, it just makes sense that you yourself have some experience of that. And of course, if you're in a certain world, you are asking really relevant questions and you understand the context without them having to explain much. So for example, for me, having been in law firms for more than 15 years, if I coach lawyers, they don't need to tell me, oh, it's like this in a law firm, and I want to be a partner, and someone might have to say, oh, well, what does that involve? It's like, you don't need to tell me any of that. You don't need to tell me about the politics. I know all of that stuff. We can just park that on the side. You can just assume I know it all, and then the rest of it, I'm just interested in your personal story. So then it gives us that freedom to focus on them and their situation. And as a coach, you always are there just for that individual. You don't care about all of the other stuff going on. You just look at it from their perspective, and then you try to help them reframe things. So you're very much bringing about, their own self-awareness and really helping them to, change their perspective on things. And certainly my approach is always to go down the positive. I really try to help people develop a positive mindset, to really look at the situation and think of other angles on it. And to always move forward, because people do get stuck on things, and it just really takes that objective person to be able to say, okay, well, what are you thinking about that? Like, what does that mean to you? Why might that be? How else could you look at that? What would that other person say? What's it like to sit in their shoes? All of those different things. And that's the joy of, that relationship, really.
Yeah. Yeah, I like that. I've had so many of my friends ask, what's the best way to choose a coach, or if they actually need one, and it's, for me, I always tell them, I don't really know. I mean, I know I know, maybe you have some hurdles, some challenges in your life, and probably you need some clarity. But as to who can provide you that clarity, I never feel comfortable saying, providing an answer there. But what I do know is that, all options should be on the table. So whether it's coaching or having a mentor or just having a good support system of people going through the same challenges as you, i.e., the startup ecosystem or Alcoholics Anonymous, you know, I think that's the most important thing, to not eliminate options because of preconceived of perceptions of what you think it might be. So yeah, it's good that you answered that. So I think my listeners can kind of maybe understand. Maybe it's worth exploring coaching if they feel like it.
Yeah, I mean, in terms of, finding the right coach, it's really important to have the right chemistry. And actually, most coaches will offer you, a chemistry call where you really will, experience their coaching and to really see if you're a fit, because it's essential that you as a coach really can engage and actually genuinely care about your client, in order to really, feel that connection and do your best work with them. And so that chemistry call is really important to assess whether you can work well together, because it's supposed to be a partnership and a two-way relationship. So it's so important that you get on and that you like each other. And I certainly have basically become friends with everybody I've coached, but it's really important to feel invested, that you're there 100% for their success. You're doing everything within your power to kind of help them get along. That you're their personal support system, their cheerleader. You really help them get over all the hurdles. And I just think that in the States, majority of people in the States have like a therapist, right?
Yeah.
A shrink. But I'm such a strong believer, now that I know what coaching is, that every single person should have, an executive coach for their career. Because if you don't have a coach, you're basically wandering around the world and your life without a compass. You're just meandering along with no goals in mind, no actual destination. So, let a coach be your sat nav. Why don't you program where you want to go in life and find that right person, the right fit? The thing is, a lot of people think, oh, coaching, it's super expensive. Well, the reality is that, like anything, there are coaches at every single level. Personally, my level is for the very, professional executive. This is definitely not cheap and cheerful, if you want to coach with me. However, there are so many coaches within the network, and you can always reach out to any coach and they can always introduce you to someone else. And all coaches will also, tell you if you're not the right fit and try and help you find someone who is fit, and we're a very close network here in Singapore in particular, and we can always find you someone that will suit you. So it's really important to really think about the support you need at this time. Mental health is a really big thing. Coaching is not therapy. Okay, so is that things that get rather too deep and have other issues, our ethics do make sure that we ask these people to go and get proper psychological help, and we try to work with some psychologists that we can refer to, but coaching really should be in the context of life goals, career goals, getting to the next level, and business focus. So in that context, but when you're happy in your business, it's also interconnected. You're generally happier in your life. You're probably going to have better relationships, generally be happier at home, etc., if you can sort your career out as well. It's all connected.
Love it. Thanks for sharing that. I'm mindful of your time, so I just want to end off with a question. I I asked this to many of my guests, but this one has a slight tweak. Usually, I ask them, um, what is the longest life? Yeah, what is the longest or what is the life lesson that has taken you the longest to learn? But I think, to tweak that towards your cancer journey, perhaps I'd like to ask you, what life lesson have you learned from your cancer journey?
I think for me personally, it has to be like to slow down. I've always been running around my life like a headless chicken, 110 miles an hour. So I do everything just to the fullest. And actually, I must be kinder to my body and my health. I have always just pushed myself to the limit and then collapsed in a heap, totally fatigued, you know. And I think one of the biggest things about this cancer is the fact that my immunity was very low, and because of that, you know, because I really live this full tilt lifestyle, and that made me susceptible to the cancer, left me open to that, and then it did latch on, you know, when my defenses were down. So I have learned to practice deeper breathing, to really try and I have really focused on trying to get exercise as much as possible, focusing on eating much more organic food, spending quality time, you know, with my family. I think I'd always been a kind of I'll sleep when I'm dead kind of person.
Yeah.
But when you think you're going to be dead, like really shortly, that doesn't work. So I guess I kind of thought, oh, yeah, that's not a good philosophy. Let's not attempt that. Let's try and be more measured, more mindful, slow down. I think the pandemic has really helped me, because having been, you know, locked up in my house, I have slowed down. I've had a lot of time to reflect on myself, on my life, on the future of the world, on the uncertainties. But I feel really fortunate. I think everybody should really tap into the things that they can be grateful for on a daily basis. You know, any small bit of bad news you might have, just tune into your, you know, just flick on your mobile phone and go to the BBC News app, and you'll soon find some catastrophic disaster that will help to put things into perspective. You know, that terrible Beirut explosion, or some massive tsunami somewhere, or, you know, so we really do have to think about what are real, you know, stresses and disasters in your life, and actually, you know, what you've got to be grateful for. And like I said, I'm grateful for so much, and I just need to slow down a bit, and yeah, perhaps enjoy it a bit more, not keep rushing to the next thing. I'm always in a bit of a hurry.
Yeah, as is most of us. So yeah, I mean, well, thanks for that. I think that was really insightful and something that we always need to hear and to be reminded of. Before we end, I'd like to give you a chance to share, you know, if people are interested in what you do, or maybe just, you know, getting on a chemistry call, as you call it. How can they reach you or find you?
Yeah, well, so at this moment in time, the best way is through LinkedIn. So just Lara Quie, Quie, on LinkedIn. Send me a connection request with a little message. I am working on my brand new website. It's taking a lot of effort and a lot of time, but it will eventually be up at laraquassociates.com, just one word. So Lara for Lara, Q, the letter Q, associates.com. But yeah, LinkedIn. I love LinkedIn. It's my my fun passion. I'm on LinkedIn all the time. I'm trying to share, tips and tricks and insights and things on LinkedIn. I'll be doing a lot more writing over the coming weeks. So yeah, I'm always open to new connections, and would love to coach anybody who's feeling a bit uncertain during these times, and who want to, particularly people who want to develop a positive mindset.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much, Lara, for having a conversation with me today. I really learned a lot, and I appreciate you taking the time.
Well, thanks so much, Nick. It's been a fantastic conversation. I've really enjoyed it.
Cheers.